this is going to be a Let's Meet for a Beer podcast, but this could easily be an Explore84 podcast. I do both, but you own a brewery, so how can it not be a Let's Meet for a Beer podcast? How you doing, Jochen?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I have the other tea today.
Oh, that's
We're not
boring.
open yet.
I guess, what time is it? It's early.
Yeah, it's 10:15.
Yeah.
They let us in, which is good.
I know, this
They're
is
nice.
good. So we decided to, we're at 1600 here in Calgary, and we wanted to record from here because, sadly, they're closing, but this place holds a special place for you. Talk about that for a second.
Well, it was like the day after St. Paddy's Day, 2016,
2016?
where we had our very first beer, very first commercial pint poured.
Yeah.
And that was right here, same line where it is right now, and still on. So when I heard that they were closing down on December 1st, I'm like, it was a pretty hard day.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's an end of an era for sure. There's a lot of good memories in this place. What was the first beer that you poured?
The Hefe,
The Hefe? Yeah, nice. I
Old
believe,
Faithful.
I don't know if I was there the very first day, but I was definitely here. If
I
it
think you
wasn't,
were.
yeah,
I
I think
think
I
you were.
was. But yeah, trying it out for the first time. So
A lot of people were trying it out for the first
Yeah.
time. We're really, really pleasantly surprised for the first time.
absolutely. So we've chatted a number of times, but I just kind of want to get, because there's a specific, I guess, journey I'll say that you've been on, but I kind of want to put some context into how you got to kind of where you are right now.
Okay.
So let's do a little bit of a recap. So, grew up in Germany.
Yes.
What's the town? What's just kind of describe your childhood.
It's called Ebringen. 300 residents, right on the border to Switzerland between Lake Constance and the Black Forest.
Okay.
I keep saying it's like 10 times more pigs than residents, but
Right.
I think that ratio is higher. And I did, that's where I grew up. Very, very small town, rural,
Yeah.
always out and about. And then I did an undergrad, no, not an undergrad, an apprenticeship in IT.
Yeah.
In the neighboring town. That was with Alcan. So like if you like heard about the tinfoil,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where I was doing my apprenticeship in.
Oh, okay.
And then from there I went on to go back to school. And, like did university, college in the Black Forest in bioprocess engineering.
Yeah.
So biotechnology. Came to Calgary for about a year for an exchange that I set up with the both universities. Spent some time in neuroscience at the UFC, and
Yeah.
then went back to Germany to finish my bachelor's, using like genetically modifying yeast to make a skin cream ingredient,
Oh, okay.
or to produce a high-value skin cream ingredient. And I came back to Calgary in 2008 to start my master's in medical science, and I fast-tracked into biomedical engineering PhD. And that was done in 2013, and I had a very brief stint as a project manager at a heat exchange development company.
Is that the one where you and you and the boss didn't see eye to eye?
No, I'm just a terrible project manager at the time. And then I lost that job there, and then I got, a week later, became senior scientist at Botanico, which is a plant biotech company.
Okay.
That lasted for a year and a half, and then I had a fight with the CEO, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then one of my like advisors at the time said, "Well, you've been yapping my ear off about starting a brewery, and the regulations has just changed, and if you're not doing it now, then you'll never do it."
Right.
So I did it. That was in 2015,
Yeah.
right around the time when my wife told me that she was pregnant with our son.
Wow.
Yeah, those were 2 really, really rough years.
No kidding, hey?
Yeah, and then, brewery is now 9 years old.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that
Crazy.
it's been that long, almost
9
10
years.
years. Yeah. So you came to Canada for school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, when you moved, when you came to Canada, was your intention to stay here, or
No.
was your intention to go back? So why, what ended up happening that you stayed in Canada?
I met my wife.
Yeah.
That's essentially it.
Yeah, good.
Right. But also, Calgary is great. Alberta is great. Germany is great. Both have pros and cons, but I really enjoyed my time in Alberta. The people are great. I love the area. It made me feel like home pretty quick,
Yeah.
and so that was really the biggest part of it, right? I had the choice back when I was in undergrad to go to Beijing, Calgary. I forgot the third one, but like I chose Calgary at the time. And
Yeah.
I'm not regretting it.
Yeah. Just in terms of similarity, like just being close to the mountains and stuff like that, I'm sure there's a lot of things about Alberta that are similar. I mean,
Very similar. I mean,
obviously there's differences, but
where I'm from, like I've foothills of the Alps,
Yeah.
foothills of the mountains, Chinook winds, Föhn winds in Germany.
okay.
Same
Oh
thing.
wow, really? Eh?
Just landscape towards Kananaskis. That's just all really where I'm from, right?
Yeah.
Like so, like it was instant
cool.
feeling like home.
So you mentioned that you had an advisor that said, "Hey, if you're not going to start a brewery now, it's never going to happen." So what was it about, starting a brewery that was something that you were thinking about? What?
Well, I mean, when I came over here to start my grad school, like even the beers that were imported from Germany didn't taste like the beers from home, right? Like
Yeah.
by the time they go onto container ship, harbor,
Yeah.
ship, harbor, train, liquor connect, liquor store, and then they sit for however long there. They just didn't taste right to me. So I started home brewing.
Okay.
Tapped a bit into my heritage there. So my dad was with 2 German breweries for over 50 years.
Yeah.
And I remember I was about like hip height, and I was on beer trucks with my dad, and like
Nice.
in like beer depots, and like in Germany I still have the 2-4 frames, like so the
Yeah.
really big plastic heavy frames with 24 beer bottles in there, and like
Yeah.
I just lugging those around. That was great, and fun memories.
Yeah.
And then with the Hefe, I've been brewing that. Well, it's probably one of the first beers I've ever brewed as a home brewer, and it's won a bunch of awards in the homebrew circles. And
Yeah.
I think the biggest one was 2013, I think, in Vancouver, the Homebrewers Awards, and it won Best of Show out of like over 300 beers or so, and like
Oh yeah.
for
Wow.
for just a plain Hefe, nothing,
Yeah.
not a mango, double cherry, sour Hefe.
Yeah.
It beat out all the IPAs and everybody else. So like
Wow.
that was great.
Yeah. So for you coming from Germany and growing up kind of with that beer culture and having the influence of your dad, how did you kind of bring that culture, or what parts of that culture did you want to bring to Canada?
I think the focus of what I wanted to bring to Canada with the brewery and the business that I have is really the focus on the craft. Not so much the ingredients, but really the art and science really of and the engineering of making beer.
Yeah.
And make it consistent and make it high quality every single time, right? I really ask, and I say that a lot. I'm answering a different question with my products, right? Like you can either, especially with craft beer, you can either ask, what am I putting into the pint, right? And those are like the crazy creative beers, right? Or you can ask the question, how am I putting it into the pint? Like one is what, and the other one is how.
Okay.
And we made the conscious decision on really focus on the how, get that down, and let the product really speak for itself, right? And that's the heritage.
Yeah.
Really, like it's you're not boasting about the product too much, but like you want to let the product speak for itself. It's not about the marketing in this case. It's really about the product.
Right. So how do you balance that with, well, I'll say the Canadian beer culture, let's just say North American beer culture, is a little bit, I'd say maybe quite a bit looser than Germany. So you have the laws in Germany, and there's a strict kind of code, whereas here it's kind of like you can add this, you can add that. So how was it for you? How do you balance those two things where you come from that German tradition of this is what beer is supposed to be, and then here where there's a little bit more, I don't know if you want to call it creativity.
It might be a bit inflammatory, but like it's also my heritage, right?
Yeah.
Germans say it like it is, and it's very literal. So I think, especially in the beginning when the craft beer really took off, like this latest wave, it was all about, I don't want to drink what my dad was drinking, and I don't want to drink the like boring standard beers, right? And so that was what a lot of craft breweries then were aiming at.
Yeah.
There's a few breweries that come to mind that said, well, we have over 100 different products a year, and to me it was like, okay, you can do that for a while. But the problem that I saw with that was that even before I opened a brewery was that a lot of these breweries, they were so out there that they were all the same all of a sudden.
Right. Okay.
So for me, my point of distinguishing is that different question that I'm asking, where I say, okay, how do I make the beer, not what beer do I make?
Right.
Which is cool, good and bad in many ways.
Yeah.
It gives me a point of distinction, right? It's really, I'm bringing old world traditions and I bring it out here and I make it here, right? Which gives me and our beers a very different flavor profile, a very different touch and feel, if you will.
Okay.
Which is a little bit more difficult to get people to taste and try, but what we found is as soon as people try and taste the beer, they more often than not they come back because they're blown away by how good it is and how simple ingredients combined with really nailed down technique, what they can actually create.
Right.
So I think by me sticking to traditional, in air quotes, standard beers, I'm actually the outlier.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, it has its benefits.
Yeah.
Very challenging too.
So one of the cool things with what you've done in a relatively short amount of time with some of your beers is you've actually won awards internationally. So you're going up against German beers in the same categories and beating them. So maybe talk about some of those experiences and what that meant to you.
I mean, you can think about beer competitions and awards, what you want about them. I'm gonna get chastised by my sales guys, but like I don't give too much weight on them.
Right.
What I like about those competitions, especially the bigger international ones that are really double blind and you don't know what it is, where it's from, I value that feedback from those judges way more than the awards.
Okay.
Because it gives us a direct feedback from somebody that specifically looks for flaws.
Right.
And feedback like that we can use to be better. And every time we get another award or feedback, we work it in and we try and get better and better and better every time, right? Now, that's not saying that I'm really humbled and really proud of what the beer has achieved, right? And we as a company, my brewers, everybody, my taproom staff, what we've achieved has been an amazing journey so far. I mean, 3 years into having our own facility, we made the best beer, the best Bavarian Hefeweizen in the world, right?
Yeah.
Based on the World Beer Awards that are held in London, England. To get there, we had to send our samples to Toronto, have them blind tasted there, win the category, have enough points to win the country in that category, and then be sent on to London, England, where we then were tasted against all the other country winners that went to the through the same process in their respective countries, and
Yeah.
then we won that.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I mean, I think we were I'm not sure about this, but I'm pretty certain that we were the very first Canadian brewery that did that and got that award. right?
Nice. Good for you.
The cool thing there was, that was in 2020. And then we get an email out of the blue saying, well, we work with St. James House. I had no idea, I'd never heard who St. James House Publications is.
Yeah.
And I thought it was spam at first, so I looked her up on LinkedIn and connected there, and she said, no, that's real. So it turns out that St. James House was hired by Rolls-Royce to organize the party for their 20th anniversary of their global headquarters
Nice.
in London, England. So we were invited to be part of that celebration and the exhibit, and we had our Hefe actually in London in 2022
Yeah.
at the Rolls-Royce celebration. And we have a page in their coffee table book. They've honored us as a global sustainable luxury brand. And coming from Rolls-Royce, it was amazing. Right?
No kidding.
Like, that was just surreal. Like, the people we met at that event and just that publication house was, they were doing all the royal weddings and all the royal, so it's a really high quality
Good for you, man.
publication house, right? And here is a small brewery from, at that time, Turner Valley,
Yeah.
just outside Calgary, that's being invited by them to celebrate an event like that of a prestigious company like that.
Yeah.
And it was just that's cool. And then the year later we won gold in Germany for the Hefe and the copper. And then the year after that we won grand gold with the copper it's in Germany again with our amber lager, right? And then gold in the Hefe wins a gold medal at least once a year.
Yeah.
And then the pills or the copper win different medals, or the Munich sometimes. Our non-alcoholic does. But every beer that we have has won at least one medal in the past.
Wow.
And I think I'm not saying too much when I say we're probably one of the most decorated breweries, at least in Western Canada, if not in all of Canada, right?
Yeah. Good for you.
And so I feel always a bit awkward bragging like that, but really it's not bragging because I can show the list of the awards that we've gotten, right? I mean, we're doing something right there.
Absolutely. I'm curious, what is the reaction from German brewers when, are they going who the hell is this guy? Are they supportive? Are they dismissive?
It's funny, I haven't heard absolutely nothing from them. The only thing that I heard was I was invited to the council, the honorary council of Germany in Calgary. They had a swearing in, and the general council came from the general consulate in Vancouver.
Okay.
And when he found out who he was, the first thing he said to me was "Oh, you're the famous Jochen Fahr." It's
You're like,
oh, thank
stop
you,
it.
thank
Oh,
you.
Stop it. Yeah. That's awesome.
But so they did notice, but Germans generally stick to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They don't really.
Yeah, they're not going to acknowledge. Yeah, I can see it. But good for you for
The best
taking
thing
them
that
on.
happened was at Willow Park with Dave Gingrich.
Yeah.
And that was right after we got the award. And I'm there and I talk to him and he stops me in my sentence, looks over, and I'm not saying the whole name, but he's like, "Hey Peter, come over here." And so Peter comes over here and he's like, "Peter, stand right there." And he puts him right next to me and he looks at him and he's like, "So Peter, how does it feel to stand next to the guy that has the world's best Bavarian wheat beer?" It's like, Erdinger doesn't need that. Those competitions. So that was kind of it was a fun way of
Yeah.
putting a little bit
That's
the
fun.
poker.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
Dave is good for that.
Yeah.
I didn't put him up for that one.
Yeah,
He did
Dave
well.
pokes the bear.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
good at that. I like that.
I didn't put him up on that. That was all him.
Yeah. Oh, I don't question that for a second. So one of the things, then this is where, like I said, it could have went kind of the exploratory way, is when you think about, being an entrepreneur, a lot of creativity is involved in taking something that, is in your mind and making it real. And so from a mind and from a spiritual perspective, I feel like being an entrepreneur checks a lot of those boxes. It's a creative pursuit, but I feel like, and it's not just in the beer industry, but it's in a lot of industries. When you're an entrepreneur, there's so much of your energy that goes into it that your physical health sometimes is what takes a toll, right? Because it's like, okay, I'll do that, but at first I got to do this, this, and this. The checklist is kind of endless. So you end up ignoring your physical health.
Right.
Did you find that was kind of the case for you at a certain point?
We had we had a bit of an incident in the brewery where we had to shut down for a little bit. I
Yeah.
don't like to dwell on that one, but that was a mentally very stressful time.
Right.
And it's been very stressful since, because it's caused a lot of fallout and work to get out from underneath that really mountain of things that it pulled on or piled on
Right.
top of the normal everyday thing, right?
Yeah.
And then my dad passed away in the meantime, my brother passed away in the meantime for different reasons. And it really, to me, then it said, well, this is how it can just stop, right? So,
Yeah.
so what do I want? Do I want to just work my ass off and grind and grind and grind? And I still do that, but I have to find a way to find a balance and to get a bit more quality of life and to really take care of. I started to learn that once you take care of your physical health, it really translates more into your mental health stability as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I went through quite a bit of a few dark days,
Yeah.
dark months, if you will.
Yeah.
Going in 2023 in October, I started going to F45 really, really frequently, religiously almost,
Right.
and I found that getting this outlet, I went 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Every morning before work, and it just gave me this clarity more of okay, I can do this. I have the mental strength to do this. I have the physical strength to do it. I can prove it to myself that as soon as you can prove to yourself that you can overcome a few things, and you gain so much more strength from it, right? And so I decided to have another challenge for myself that is not work related, that I could show myself that I can do it and I can pass it, I can succeed in it, right? And that's how I signed up for the HYROX race. That when you talked to me about the podcast, that's what you were really most interested about.
Well, I find it fascinating. One is because I hadn't heard of this before. There's a lot of things that you hear about, like marathons and triathlons, and there's a lot of those kind of things. But this was something that was totally new to me. So let's talk about that.
It was new to me too.
Yeah. So where did it come from? So it's called the HYROX, HYROX, right? HYROX competition. Where did the idea for doing that come from?
So as I mentioned, in October last year, I signed up for an F45 class.
Yeah.
And that was at the F45 here in Pump Hill.
Okay.
In Oak Ridge. And my coach at the time, she was already signed up, and she said, "Well, you're working so hard, you're 5 days a week here, and you're every time you're done, you're kind of dead. But that shows how much work you put in and who you are." And she's like, "Do you want to do that race with me?" It's like, what is this, right? And I've never ran before. I've never done anything before. So I looked it up, and I said, you know what? This is a great challenge to prove to myself what I can do, and whether I can do it physically or mentally or both, right?
Yeah.
And so I signed up with her back in May, and then I started running. In early May, I ran 6K for the first time ever. I've never run that long.
Oh, really?
And then and then a week later, I did the Calgary Marathon, the 10K.
Oh, good for you.
And then I was like, okay, I'll sign up. So we did, and then we just started training for it since May, right? And the HYROX race that I did was in Toronto, and it was October 5th.
Okay.
So the day before my birthday, that was fun.
Oh, nice. Good for you. So what is it like? How does it break down? Because it's like I said, it's a lot different than what the competitions that I've seen. So there's a running component, but then there's kind of that physical.
Yes. So basically, it's 8 stations.
Okay.
So 8 workouts, and before each workout, you run 1 kilometer.
Okay.
Right? So it's 1 kilometer running, and
Yeah.
it's 1,000 meters stationary skier,
Okay.
and it's a K running, and it's a sled push, and then it's a K running, it's a pull, and then running, and then it's burpees, burpee broad jumps,
Yeah.
and then running. So like between every station is like 1K running, and then it's 1,000 meters rowing. There's a 200 meter farmer's carry. It's 100 meters weighted walking lunges, and then it's
Yeah.
100 wall balls at the end.
Wow.
So it's all those stations we like really are very close to an F45 class, but they're just in a race competition, right?
Yeah.
Or like in a race.
So you were more comfortable with that physical component versus the running component. So how was? Because I'm kind of the opposite of that. I'm a better runner than I am kind of in the weight category. But for you, how did you overcome the running kind of part of what you do? Like because some people try running and they're like, no, I'm never gonna do this.
That was me.
Yeah.
Like I hate running.
Yeah.
I hate running, and now I run regularly, right? I mean, but it was all part of perspective and attitude.
Yeah.
In that race, definitely, if you're a runner and like you have, it's an endurance race, right? Like it's not too much on weightlifting, or it's really endurance. So
Right.
if you're a runner, you have definitely a leg up.
Yeah.
Pun not intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's I said, well, I don't mind those weight exercises. My challenge is going to be the running, and so that's what I took on it, right? Like
Yeah.
for me, it's been. The challenge is to do something that I used to absolutely despise,
Yeah.
right? And then master it,
Yeah.
or try to master it. I'm not ways away from it, but like just to keep working on it. And so that's why that race was so appealing to me, right? Because it's not just running.
Right.
To me, just running is just boring.
Yeah.
People say, well, I just think about stuff and I look at the area and like I see whether there's like crazy people running somewhere, and that's how they get out of it. It's like, no, I can't do that.
Right.
I can't relax while I'm doing stuff. Like I'm running for the sake of running,
Okay.
so I get it done.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's why for me, going for a run was always like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Like it's just torture. But this gave me actually a goal, right? Like, so to me, and maybe that's just how I work, but like, if I can see the defined goal in front, then that gives me the drive to achieve it, right?
Right.
And if there's a competition, I'm showing up for it.
Yeah. No, I like that. So I'm curious, when you accomplished your first race, there's a woman that I talked to a while ago, and she did a triathlon, and thinking that she'd never be able to do anything like that. And then as soon as she crossed the finish line, she said her brain just kind of went to like, okay, what else can I do? Like, what else have I been telling myself I can't do that I can do? Did you experience that where your brain kind of opens up to say like, okay, what else am I capable of? Or what was your reaction when you crossed the finish line?
When I crossed the finish line at that race, I was like, holy fuck, that was hard.
Yeah.
It took me a good 20 minutes until I could do anything else.
Yeah.
Right? And then I was like, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure whether I would do another one.
Right,
And
right.
so like, then I got home. The day after was my birthday, and then I kept going and I kind of fell into a bit of a hole, mentally. And
Yeah.
I look it up, and it's like, a lot of high performance athletes get that, or Olympians get it. Like you train so much for one event,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's done.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And now what? Right?
Yeah.
That's when I said, am I gonna do another one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to beat my time from this one.
Right.
Am I trying not to get a penalty because I miscount laps when I run this?
Yeah.
And then kind of the the idea was kind of taken away from me when like my coach said, well, I'm actually a HYROX ambassador,
Right.
and I have a bunch of tickets to raffle off.
Right.
I won another ticket, so I'm doing another one.
Oh, nice. So this second one, and this one is in Washington?
That one is in Washington.
Okay. It's interesting that you said that about that kind of lull afterwards, because that's what I always found is I would go, I would have these ups and downs, right? So I would train for something, and then I'd be really excited because I'm, okay, I'm in really good shape and I'm doing this. And then what I would find is like a couple weeks later, I'm, not in worse shape than I was before, but almost, right?
You feel bad.
So it's kind of like this up and down and up and down.
Yes.
And so that's why for me personally, I started doing what I now call X44 is it's like that, okay, how can I maintain some sort of like foundation that is not rock bottom,
Right.
so that if and when I decide to, go towards a goal, then it's, I'm not starting at the very bottom. I'm
Right.
starting kind of in the midway point. So for me, that's why I really like to combine, the daily habits with the goals. So for you, is that what F45 has become? Is kind of those weekly, daily habits of like maintaining a certain level of health?
I mean, part of it too is like, what I like about F45 is that it's class-based and it's time-based. Like you can't go whenever you want. There's a class at this time.
Right.
Right? I'm the one that calls the shots in the brewery. I'm the one that makes all the times for everybody. Like, for me, it's a great way of like saying, okay, I can relinquish control. I have to be there at that time, and that's what it is, right?
Right.
Like, so to me, that's appealing to it.
Yeah.
Having another goal set really helped me out of that hole as well. And I feel that is going to be an interesting problem for me. I mean, I'm 43 now. Like, I'm not thinking of retiring, but like I'm part of a CEO club that meets in the morning, like every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And they're all older, and they're all in their exit stages of their businesses, right?
Right.
And part of their conversations, when I listen to them, and I take them as mentors, is really, really close to what I experienced after the race, because they were working all their life as entrepreneurs, and some of them are very successful, and they say, okay, when I sell this or when I retire, then what? They fall into a bigger hole than I fell into after this race. So like, I'm looking at strategies that they are using to avoid this, right?
Yeah.
And like, but I'm trying to like avoid the landmine, if you will.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be, I have to face it at one point too. I mean, like, I'm not sure whether I'm having this until the end of my life, this brewery, and then I inherit it to my son, or am I selling it? I never say no to any of the possible exits, right? But then my biggest challenge is going to be what now?
Yeah.
That what now is a really, really crucial question.
Yeah.
And I find it's a question that could hold you back potentially too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's something you have to think about. Or I mean, the problem is so many people don't think about it, that then when something happens, they're not at all prepared for it. So
the worst question to receive is, so you do this and then what's next?
Yeah.
And then you look at them and you're like, that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
But if you can answer the question, I think you can kind of mitigate that hole that comes after a big thing that you've like worked really, really hard for.
Totally. So I'm curious, and I don't want to put you on the spot or anything like that, but one of the things that you mentioned was you lost your dad and you lost your brother. Was that for you, how did that make you kind of reflect about obviously your own mortality and your own kind of health, and did that kind of give you that realization that like, hey, I need to do something?
This is a tough question.
Yeah, sorry.
I lost my brother to ALS in January last year.
Okay.
And he was the one person in my life that I was connected to the most and thought like me the most. I could talk to him the most, and he was really an anchor for me. losing him, and he was 53 at the time when he passed away. He has always been the athletic one in the family. He was always played fairly high soccer until his ACL tear, and then always a successful, strong-willed, like I can get anything done kind of person. And then I met him 3 weeks before, like I flew back to Germany 3 weeks before he passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I see him sitting in a wheelchair, hunched over, a shadow of himself, barely able to talk because his tongue was paralyzed by the ALS. That was the biggest shock moment I've had in my whole life.
Yeah.
And when he passed away, that was a really, really big loss for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while to get out of that mentally. And then, like in October of that year, that's when I started doing the F45 stuff, and really started to take more care of myself. Like losing him at 53 really showed to me that we are not here forever.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take care of ourselves. There's nothing that he did wrong. Like ALS it shows up and it shows up if it shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's random.
Yeah.
There's two forms. One is genetic and one is spontaneous. And he told me he had the spontaneous form. So he just got the worst card dealt. And to me, that's a nightmare disease. Like it's just, you die from the outside in while having like the sharpest mind.
Really, huh? Yeah.
And that's what ALS is. And it's the worst nightmare that I could think of. Physical exercise doesn't prevent it. And it doesn't change your chances of getting it or not because it's spontaneous. But it's like, it showed me that we only have a limited time here and what we want to do. So how do we want to spend it? How do we want to feel, right? What is important? And what do I want to leave as a legacy, right? Like, so to me, it's like when he passed away and he has two daughters and a wife. When he passed away, it's like I thought to myself, it's like he was such a strong example for his daughters, and I want to do that for my son too. Like I want to be his best friend, I want to be his mentor, I want to be his rock, right? While showing him that's okay to be independent, strong-willed, and pave your own path, right? But to me, it's like, okay, I can slave in my brewery and make sure that I have eventually an exit that eventually gives me hopefully the amount of money that I can have to retire and provide for my family and for him, right? Or I can spend a little bit less time and focus on him and my family so that I can actually like enjoy the time that I have with them, right? Because every time gone is another day gone, right? And so what is more important?
Yeah.
It's really a heavy topic, and it's not easy to talk about, but like at the same time, and like it's just, that's why I went to the gym, because it became mentally so overbearing with the brewery having the issues that it had at the time, with my brother showing me what could happen if tomorrow everything is over all of a sudden, right? To my family and like what they need from me. It's like, okay, how do I... The saying is you don't see the forest for the trees, and I think that's where I was at the time. And like going to the gym, where you show up at a given time, you don't have another choice. There's a program and you have to go. It's a 45-minute high-intensity interval training. So it's a program set. You don't have to think about what you do, how you do it. Oh, I'm doing this station for 35 seconds 3 times, and I move on to the next station and I do this for 35 seconds 3 times. It just gave me that break where I say, okay, I don't have to think. I just have to do for once.
Right.
And like, and this is a balance that I think at the time I really needed.
Absolutely. One of the things, and so many people realize that, you know, when it is too late, you know, their kids are grown up and they're like, shit, you know, I wish I would have spent more time with them or whatever. So for you to have that realization, obviously it's sad that, you know, you had that realization while reflecting on your brother. But the fact that you had that realization, you were able to kind of course correct on some level. Has that been obviously a positive in your life then?
It has, definitely. I mean, like, sometimes I feel it's not fair to him, but like to me, my son is really my anchor point in my life now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I can make things, when I can spend time with him, when I can teach him stuff, when I can help him along with stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that is what makes what makes everything worthwhile for me.
Right.
Like, if I can provide him with what he needs when he needs it, and he doesn't know it, but like he's giving me so much strength.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, the brewery has always been a way to sustain myself and my family.
Yeah.
And of course, I have to take care of my shareholders, right? But like, when you look at a personal reflection, then really, what counts the most to me is to see Max, my son, like develop and become his own person and become a strong, smart, intelligent, really great guy all around, right? Like, and so this is my biggest reward, right? And like, if I can arrange my day, and if I can arrange my mind capacity, if you will. I read a book about entrepreneurial systems, and one way to categorize your employees and yourself is by 3 categories, and it's get it, want it, and has capacity, right? If any of those 3 aren't in place, then you're not the right person.
Okay.
So I looked at that to myself with my family.
Yeah.
Do I get what I want out of my family? Or do I get do I get what my family needs from me?
Yeah.
Right? Does that overlap with what I want out of my family, and do I have the capacity, right? What I found was, for a really long time, especially after the shutdown that we had, I didn't have the capacity.
Right.
Then my brother passed away, my dad passed away, and I start going to the gym, and I start getting this clarity, because for 45 minutes in the day, I didn't have to think about anything.
Right.
That's when like it snapped for me. I said the capacity is what I need to work on in order to make sure that my family, and especially my son, is like getting the best nurture that he can get, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's now what I'm living for.
Yeah. What's the book called?
Traction.
Oh, okay. Damn it, I have that book and I haven't read it.
It talked a lot to me.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So, you mentioned that you're part of a CEO club group, and that those people have been mentors to you. You know, how important is that? Because I feel like sometimes, and even when you talk about the book, you know, there's these stories and there's these mentors, and they're talking to you about work and about the business that you're building, but like you say, so many things overlap then with, you can apply those principles to your family. You know, success is success. So if you can build success at work through principles, typically those can overlap and they can work in your private life. So how important has that group been to you, especially like you say, because they're older and they have that little bit more of a perspective of, okay, this is you 10 years from now, 20 years from now. How important has that been for your success as an entrepreneur?
Very.
Yeah.
Very. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's not only learning from them and what they went through. I mean, there's from essentially an IPO guy that helps companies doing IPOs publicly, to the guy that founded Spitz sunflower seeds, like the snack.
Yeah, yeah.
To an HR company that's like in there. To like, so they come from all different aspects, right?
Yeah.
sometimes it's really good to get feedback from somebody that has absolutely no idea how your industry works,
Right.
because they come in unbiased, right? And because what's said in the group stays in the group, so you can be frank and honest. And as much of camaraderie there is in my industry, it's still competition, right? So
Yeah.
you can't really talk frankly sometimes, and most of the time, you know, it's a very small world, and you never know what comes back, and what gets misunderstood, right?
Right.
So like being part of a club like that allows me to voice my concerns and my fears.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you get a feedback from at least one or two members of that group that says, yeah, I've seen that in the past, and here's what I did,
Yeah.
and here's the solution that I found out. Or if they don't know, they probably have somebody else that they know that they can introduce, right?
Right.
So to me, it's really, it's multiple things that help me with my personal and private life that I get out of it.
Yeah.
Because it just gives me so many different perspectives. And I like people with different perspectives, because it forces me to not just think, well, this brick wall behind you is red. There's like an orange in there, and there's a white in there, right? Like
Right.
so like it forces me to see other colors
Right.
of situations, other angles.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes I think we all do the same mistakes and say, okay, I think I can solve my problems only this one way,
Right.
and it might not be the right way.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, it seems obvious, right? And as soon as something seems obvious, then actually I just read a book called A More Beautiful Question, and it talks about that, where it's just like, instead of answering questions so quickly, ask more questions and just let those questions kind of sit there, as opposed to being like asking a question, answering it, and then going. You know what I mean?
What I found out, especially with them too, is like there's a real power in rephrasing. You can ask one question, but you can rephrase it, and it sounds slightly different. And all of a sudden, you think about different things.
Right.
And so, to me, I'm trying to learn this, and I'm trying to apply it. It's tricky because habits form very, very, very slowly.
Yeah.
Especially in a stubborn German.
Yeah.
But it's as soon as you have the ability to rephrase something, oh shit, this happened to me, it's the end of the world. It's like, or, oh shit, this happened. Okay, so now what?
Yeah.
Right? It's the same situation, it's a different question.
Yeah.
So if you're able to shift your perspective and like shift to like a way of sometimes even distracting yourself from a problem, sometimes that's when you get the best ideas, right?
I think that's almost imperative, is to just step away and just be like, and that's why having those physical outlets sometimes are so nice, whether it's walking or running or for you F45, I think it's huge. I used to,
most of my career has been very mental.
Yeah.
That sounds weird. Very heady.
Yeah.
Like very thinking, okay, like experiments here, like we need to solve this problem there. But part of like when I was in high school, I was doing night shifts in the summer at a metal casting company. And so I was on a conveyor belt lifting BMW gear casings off a conveyor belt, and so that was very physical.
Yeah.
Right? But it's I liken it with like if you're mentally tired, it's much, much worse than if you're physically tired.
Right.
But in order to get mentally not as tired, you have to tire yourself out physically, because they're like antagonists and protagonists, if you will, right?
Yeah. Like the physical component, like being phically tired helps you mentally, but being mentally tired doesn't help you physically, right? It doesn't work the other way.
That's why a lot of people say that physical exercise is really beneficial to treat anxiety and depressions, right? And I almost wonder whether because it's like you just get your heart rate up and you get everything pumping more, you can clear out more of your, like waste products.
So how does everything that you've kind of, the last, year and a half, 2 years of what you've been going through, how does that affect the culture at the company?
It's definitely a strain. It's 100% a strain on the culture. Like, for me, it's part of it is the amount of people that are working for me.
Yeah.
I know I need more, but I may not be able to, like, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you afford them and you get more people, but then you have to get more people to get more money. It's really the catch-22, right? And
Yeah.
then how do you keep them happy, right? So what we decided to do was we gave everybody that has a full-time position at the brewery, they all have benefits, and the benefits are actually, in my mind, very good benefits. They cover massages, they cover physiotherapy, right? Like, they cover therapists too, right?
Yeah.
And I'm encouraging them to go and see, because it helps me a lot too. It's really just the last 2 years have been enormously stressful in the brewery, just because of everything, like all the shit that piled up.
Yeah.
But what I'm really proud of and really humbled by is, like, the people that are there have been there for that for a lot of that time, right?
Yeah.
They've become loyal, and I don't say that lightly. I appreciate that immensely. I'm proud of them, and I'm very grateful to them. They might not see it,
Yeah.
but I try to shield them from a lot of things, right? And so sometimes I'm okay with being the a-hole that says no, or that does the tough decisions. But I know I do those decisions to make sure that they're taken care of. So
Yeah.
when we did the shutdown, for example, I pulled them all together, and I said, no matter what, payroll comes first for everybody, because you guys are the core of the business, and I don't want to lose any one of you.
Right.
And what I'm really proud of, even though that shutdown that we incurred cost us a good 7-digit number. A lot of other companies my size would have been belly up immediately. Meanwhile, we paid everybody on time their full amount of money, and we're not behind in any of the CRA payments, right? I'm very proud of that. And the people that left on their accords, right? I'm extremely proud of that, because it shows to me, again, it's like I almost passed out during the HYROX race, but then I willed it through over the finish line.
Right.
It's the same thing here. So I see those two things as two successes.
Yeah.
That at the moment have been extremely stressful and are still stressful, but I still see them as a success.
Yeah.
And it also told me that success isn't always obvious.
Yeah.
And again, we go back to my favorite line: you don't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Especially as business owners, we tend to hyper-focus on the issues the business has, and not the successes that the business has.
And that's true. Yeah, we don't celebrate the successes like we dwell on the shortcomings or
we're all firefighters.
Yeah.
We're all firefighters.
Yeah. So when you look back at this, so it's been almost 9 years, we'll say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think about everything that we've talked about, when you first started, I'll ask you this again just to put it in perspective, but why did you start a brewery?
It really was a necessity of mine.
Yeah.
I just lost my job.
Yeah.
It was 2015. Oil price was negative. I'm an engineer in Calgary.
Yeah.
In biomedical engineering, there was barely any biomedical engineering in the town at the time.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's it's gonna be hard anyways.
Yeah.
Might as well do. It was in the back of my mind already.
Yeah.
And then having this one guy saying, if you're not doing it now, you got your ass kicked. If you're not doing it now, you'll never do it.
Yeah.
And that one sentence kickstarted a whole bunch of things.
Because when you think about from that moment, and then everything that, we talked about a lot of the things that have happened to you over the last 9 years, but did you ever think that did you know that you were going to have to deal with a lot of those things, that you were going to have to overcome them? And then when you look at, being on the other side of that 9 years, what stands out as something that you're most proud of?
Well, I knew it wouldn't have been easy, right? Like, because then
Was
everybody
it harder
doing
than you
it.
thought?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have a lot more gray hair than and a lot faster than I thought I would.
Yeah.
But really, the hardest thing was also the thing that I'm the most proud of.
Right.
And the hardest thing to me was that shutdown. We shut down the day before our AGM, so I had to explain that to my shareholders too.
Yeah.
But then also to be around still, to not have lost, I haven't lost one of the vendors since.
Right.
Like to show to my shareholders that rightfully are getting a little impatient, but like to show to them that, look, we are still alive, we are still kicking, we are not bad.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance didn't pay us any significant amount of money because they tried to wiggle themselves out, and I think insurances are the devil, but that's a whole different story. But the fact that we survived this, the fact that I paid everybody, the fact that we are still have all up to date with CRA,
Yeah.
that nobody missed a single paycheck.
Yeah.
Not one person did. While having a shutdown that cost us about 60% of our annual revenue. That's showed me that what I've built is a very resilient business.
Right.
That can carry itself. We needed some output in, like help, or outside help, but like we can do it and we can pass. I bring it back to the HYROX ways. Like I had to do the 7th out of the 8 stations was walking lunges with 44 pounds on your back.
Yeah.
400 meters, where every knee has to touch the ground. And the last 20 meters, I see my field of vision just like go down to a circle. And I say, no, we do this now, body.
Yeah.
We do this now, and I build it through.
Yeah.
And this is what happened with the brewery too, right?
Yeah.
So that was, sorry my French, the most fucking hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most fucking proud thing I've ever done right after making my little son, right? Like that's, to me, the biggest, what I found was I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I only have to prove myself to one person only, and that's myself.
Right.
If I'm happy with how I managed, how I navigated this, and if I can stand any of my shareholders or you in front of, look in the eyes and say, I did the best I could.
Yeah.
I'm proud of what I did.
Yeah.
I'm proud. I can defend the actions that I did and the decisions that I made. Then that's all I can do.
Yeah.
Right? And then I have the right to be proud of. Like I didn't cave. I'm not caving, and that's the word quit is not in my vocabulary, but this is what it showed to me, right?
Yeah,
like
nice.
Everybody can say, oh, I'm not a quitter. The word quit doesn't exist to me. To me, it became real for myself during that HYROX wave and during that shutdown that we had.
Yeah.
Right. Quitting is just not an option.
I love it.
And in this case, I proved to myself that that's the case.
Yeah.
And that's probably my proudest moment.
I love it.
Thank you for bringing that out. That was actually quite the self-reflection here.
No, it's just cool to think like I said, almost 9 years ago, this is where it was. So again, this place is sadly shutting down. So end of an era, but it's been a hell of a 9 years for you, and you've come out the other end. Your perspective on physical health is that much better, and so it's just been. I wanted to kind of just think about all those things and talk them over with you, because it's been fun to watch from the outside. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
No, thanks for bringing it out. Like actually, This was great. Like this was a little therapy session here
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Yeah. Awesome, man. Okay. Well,
Perfect.
thanks.
Thank
Take
you.
care, man.